every time you're triggered, there is a being behind that trigger. And this is what I don't see anyone talking about. There is a being that fuels the trigger. Hello, YouTube. I have been gone for a minute and now I'm back. If you don't know me, hello, my name is Mina Zia and this channel is all about everything spiritual. And lately I have been focusing a lot more on trauma and trauma release. So this video today is going to explain to you why your trigger is still there, even though you've done so much work on yourself. Before I get any further, I just want to make sure you subscribe, like this video, comment if you've been going through this, or if you like this content, want to see more of it. This is kind of the direction we're going in. We're still doing crystals. We're still doing all sorts of fun metaphysical things, but this is kind of more life-threatening, so I need to talk about this now. I also need to add in, I am not a doctor, I'm not a health professional. This is for educational purposes only and is not to be taken in place of any type of medical advice or any type of therapy or anything like that. Do this supplementing with whatever other types of therapy or medical treatment you're currently going through. So kind of the reason why I am even interested in this topic is because I have had a long history of mental health issues. I've had a long history of being triggered. I was at one point the most triggered person probably anyone knew. You couldn't say anything to me. I was so sensitive. I would take everything personally. I'd take everything to heart. I'd always have a response. I couldn't control my reactions. I couldn't control my emotions. And I just felt like, am I going to be like this my whole life? Is this my future? And I realized that it's not. It's not my future. And I have the ability to control and change everything. And my biggest goal in life was to master my emotions and be free from triggers and never have to give my power away, never feel like I'm not in control of what I'm saying or the way that I'm feeling. So that's why I'm making this video today, because a lot of people have been interested in shadow work, inner child work, all of that lately. But there's one piece that's missing that I don't see anyone talking about. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to be brief in this video. I don't want this video to be 500 hours long. If you're interested in this content, if you're interested in shadow work, if you're interested in emotional freedom and psychic abilities and spiritual growth, then check out our membership. Link is going to be in description if you want to sign up for that. That's really where I let my freak flag fly and I really talk about these things and give you way more detail. We have multiple live ceremonies every month where you can come and ask questions. I can help you with your journey. So I'm right there with you. I'll help you with everything you need. Okay, so let's get into it. So just a quick rundown of how a trigger even takes place in your mind. And this is, again, this is what I've seen doing spiritual work, okay? I have not talked to a psychologist. I'm sure psychology has, well, I know for a fact psychology would have sort of a different explanation, but since I am not chained down by what I can and cannot say according to some higher group of people, I can just say the truth, okay? According to what I believe is the truth. So what I have seen in my many years now of doing Akashic record readings is that a person will have what I call an insertion point in one of their past lives, where they will adopt a story based on a trauma they experience, but the story is not accurate. So for example, if someone is mugged in the street, okay, that trauma, when you get, obviously that's a traumatic thing to go through. So what happens is that's happening in the physical reality. Then it moves into the emotional body. And you have 4 energy bodies, we'll talk about them. Moves into the emotional body. Once it's in the emotional body, if the person doesn't process the emotion and then release it, it starts moving to the mental body. And when it moves to the mental body, that is when a story is created. So for example, the story that they could create in their mind is, oh, I should never walk outside at night because I'm going to get mugged. That's what happened. I was walking outside at night and I got mugged. Now, what the actual reasoning is up to karma. That's not what this video is about. I'm just showing you how a story comes into being. So that's the story, is I'm not safe. I'm going to be mugged if I go outside at night. And so that becomes their reality. And so that person stops going out at night. Okay. So now everything that you don't solve in this lifetime emotionally moves into your spirit body, which is the fourth body. And then as you reincarnate and go into your next lifetime, you bring all of that trauma and all of those stories with you. And one by one, they start to make their way back out. So the story of I'm not safe when I walk at night, okay? That moves into the next person that they become. So for that person, it might seem random. Why do I always have this fear? And so what happens with that is the person's a child. And depending on how severe the trauma is, it can move into the other energy bodies more quickly. But let's say it's not super severe. So it moves into the mental body at what I call the sort of irritation point. There's no words for this stuff. I'm just kind of, making up the words as I go along for the things that I've seen. So it gets irritated somehow. So basically what happens is, let's say they happen to have a parent who's already paranoid. So they have a mom who's paranoid and is constantly worried about them. That mom triggers in them this story, okay? She's validating the story. So then what happens is that child sees the mom's behavior, it triggers in them that feeling that they already have had from a past life, and then it starts moving outward. So it moves from the spirit body then to the mental body. So the story is created, then the mental body to the emotional body, which validates the story. So the emotions validate the story. And then eventually, which is why I'm making this video, because we're seeing this now, and we're going to keep seeing this in the world, is a lot more people, and not just getting sick from the panorama, but getting sick from anything, because traumas turn into physical ailment, dis-ease, okay? So then when it moves into the physical body, that's when those emotions start attacking the host in a variety of ways. There's no set blueprint for what exactly this is going to become. It becomes whatever. So that is the progression. And a lot of spiritual people talk about this. The one thing, now that I told you at the beginning of the video, that I feel like people don't talk about is, let's go back to the origin. Let's go back to the original insertion point in that past life. After that person got mugged and they were terrified, that emotion, when it moved into the emotional body, became so strong in them. That law of attraction, if you guys have heard of law of attraction, I'm sure you have if you're watching this video. Law of attraction is not something you turn on and turn off. It's not something you manipulate in some way. It's always happening, just as breathing is always happening. If I go to sleep, I'm still breathing even though I'm not actively thinking about it. It's the same thing with law of attraction. It's been happening to you since you were in the womb, since you were a year old, and so on and so forth. So law of attraction is always happening. You're always attracting that which you feel inside. You're attracting what the emotional and mental bodies are saying. So I'm getting too fired up. Okay. So then what happens is the emotional body feels the feeling, and suddenly now you attract a negative being who also has that vibration. So that vibration is fear. So now perhaps you're attracting either a shadow being, which is a person who was so brutalized in their last life that they actually can't reincarnate. They got stuck, and they just are deep negative emotion now, and they just kind of float around and get called to various people, or sometimes they haunt a specific person that hurt them, and they'll just follow them forever until you give them an apology. We'll talk about that later. Let me know in the comments if you want to know about shadow beings. So it could be that. The two most likely things are shadow being or a spirit, someone who maybe when they died, they had a ton of sadness in them when they died. And so that person, overcome with that sadness, is caught in the lower astral realm, and then they found that person and were like, you're sad, I'm sad. Oh my God, let's be friends forever. And then they come closer to them. Then when the energy moves into the mental body, that being, who you can't tell the difference, by the way. If you ever heard of intrusive thoughts, where you just have a thought and you're like, what is that? I don't like this thought, but it keeps coming at me. That's not you. That's them. That is the being that you called with your trauma. This is for real. So you call this being, and then they start putting like thoughts in your mind, but you can't tell the difference between you and them because the energy is the same. The vibration is the same in that moment. So when the energy moves to the mental body and becomes the story, that being is basically invited in to become part of you, and they start living inside your energy bodies. So every person on the earth has so many. Your body is so vast. I know it feels like a small, compact space, but it's not. Your body is not fit for one being, which is you. Your body can house millions of beings within it. So however much trauma you have, every time you're triggered, there is a being behind that trigger. And this is what I don't see anyone talking about. There is a being that fuels the trigger. So that's in the first life, okay? So now the being's in you. Now it's attached to the soul. So when you die and you move to the next life, guess who's coming with you? Okay? Someone's great Aunt Sally or whoever it is. They come with you to that life, and any other beings that you attracted and that you invited in basically with your trauma, they're all coming with you. So now you're a little baby, a poor little baby, and you have like 100 different possessions of shadow beings, demons, spirits, whatever it is, and then it starts moving out. Okay, so then now this child, so now again, let's revisit that. The mom is triggering them, right? That triggers the original trauma, irritates the original trauma, starts moving out to the mental body and starts moving out to the emotional body. And now this being that's with them is activated, is like, ooh, okay, it's time for me to shine. I will protect you. And now this person's walking down the street. Let's say fast forward now, they're in high school or college and they're walking down the street. Let's say they're in college and they had like a long day at the library and now they're walking home. That person is constantly looking back, constantly, because the story of when I walk at night, I get mugged is playing, even though this person has never been mugged. This person has never seen brutality in their life. They will still have this fear and they'll keep looking back. And they'll start getting really scared. They'll start freaking themselves out. Now they're running. Now they're so freaked out. No one's there. But the trauma creates the story, which makes it real. And guess what? Now that person is attracting even more beings, even more because now they're feeling the emotional body. The emotional body is like, because the person got triggered. So now the emotional body is going crazy. And now all these other beings are coming in and getting attracted to this emotion, this negative emotion. So this is why a lot of people can do so much inner work and they still can't release the trigger, because the trigger is not triggered by the person. The trigger is triggered by the being inside you. So when you get triggered, it's not you that's like, or whatever, like creates the response. Let's say just look around. Look at all the negative comments on every single person's videos and photos. Look at how many triggered people there are in the world. So think about any trigger that there possibly is. The emotional response that almost overrides the brain, that person is not creating that response. That being got irritated. The trigger came in, the being said, oh, hell no. And then kind of like claws came out, and it moved into your brain and started kind of like doing the reaction for you. And the reason why you think it's you reacting is because, again, the being and you have merged. You have no idea the difference between you and this being. So this being is like controlling you for that brief moment, but you think it's you because there really is no difference energetically between you two. And it's probably, in some cases, this being has been with you for like 100 incarnations. So how would you ever know the difference? So I need people to know this, because if you're like me, if you're watching this and you're like me and you just thought you had just psycho thoughts all the time, and you just thought, I just have to deal with these crazy thoughts. I just have these thoughts. I used to have horrible OCD. I used to have horrible ADD. I could not control my brain. I could not get my brain to think of anything besides just whatever was happening. I felt like I was totally out of control. And I couldn't focus on anything. I constantly had all sorts of fears. All sorts of thoughts would come in my brain, and I could not get rid of the thoughts. It was horrible. And now that I have done this work over a period of many years and I've discovered these things, I am completely in control I never thought I'd say this, and I really wish that my 10-year-old, 16-year-old, 20-year-old, all these ages selves could see me now. Because if you would have told me at 18, hey, Mina, guess what? When you're 33 years old, you will not have a single thought that's not yours. Or I probably wouldn't have understood that. If you say, hey, Mina, you won't have a single negative thought ever. I would have been like, well, no, every person has negative thoughts. That's the thing. Well, I have more than the average person, but no, that's just not possible. I never would have thought it would be possible. And here I am. I was just telling my membership that now all my thoughts are positive. I don't have a judgment thought about somebody else. If I do, I instantly go and see what's happening with that. I do have some triggers left, but when I get triggered, it's like very minute. Like I don't actually react. I just kind of have a triggered thought. And then immediately I go in, okay, what is the trauma here? Release the trauma. Okay, what's the being in here? Release the being. I know exactly what to do. So I'm not a perfect person. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, I'm 100% healed. I have nothing. I'm still struggling with these things too, but I know exactly how to handle it. And it is like, I'm in control of my mind. I'm in control of my emotions. I've never been happier in my entire life. And I never ever thought I would be here. I really didn't. And so anyone watching this who feels the same way, if this is resonating with you, please stick around. I'm going to be talking way more about this. Again, if you want to just dive right in, check out the membership at the link in bio. We work on this every single time we meet. And yeah, so I'll come out with more and more videos on this. Please leave comments telling me what you're interested in, if you have any questions or anything like that. And I will see you guys so soon. Bye-bye.